Hola, I'm Claudia Romo Edelman.
And I'm Cynthia Kleinbaum Milner.
And this is a podcast a la Latina.
The playbook to succeed being your authentic self.
Today, we have Marissa Solis, a Senior Vice President for Global Brand and Consumer Marketing of the NFL.
If you stick around, you're going to learn 3 key takeaways.
Marissa is going to talk to us about, number 1, how has she made all her organizations take the big bet? Yes, PepsiCo and the NFL investing the big bucks and, putting Latinos first, not before building her own credibility.
Number 2, we're going to learn why Latinos are perfectly suited to be the best employees in any organization, because we grow up in circumstances that make us more resilient, more flexible, and more adaptable.
And that's flipping the script completely. And number 3, that this is not about you. In order to promote yourself and get career advancement, try to solve the problem of someone else.
Stick around.
All of that and more here in our podcast A la Latina. Hola, bienvenidos everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Another podcast A la Latina edition.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
So for today, we're very excited to be here with you, Marissa Solis, Senior Vice President of Global Brand and Consumer Marketing of the NFL.
Marissa, let's start early on because we know that our audience, millennial Latinas, young Latinas climbing the ladder, will want to know, how did you grow up, and especially what of the values that you think have propelled your career can you trace back to those early years in Mexico City and then when you moved to Texas with your family?
Yeah, I will tell you probably all the values, my core foundation was built when I was growing up. Partly in Mexico City, I lost my dad when I was very young at the age of 6. So I had to see my mom really survive on her own. And, she later was remarried. And when we moved to the States, the only thing they could do in the States was restaurants. So they went into the restaurant business. And the restaurant business, as you know, is really tough. It's 24/7. And you learn very early on that work ethic. My dad used to tell me, there's no job that's a bad job. You take pride in everything, whether you're washing dishes or mopping floors or hosting somebody. And it was really that work ethic, that pride in what you do, putting your 110% that I grew up with, and it stuck with me, even till today.
And I think that just following up on that, I know that you went to Georgetown University with the idea of actually becoming a diplomat. We would like to know more about those dreams, and then how do we fast track from now? I've seen you, and we admire you, and I think that a lot of Latinas would benefit from understanding what the big picture is and what are the steps that you need to take to get there. Can you talk a bit more about how was the dream?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, coming to the States as a Mexican immigrant and, growing up in South Texas, I knew I wanted to somehow go back to Mexico or go back to Latin America and help Latin America. And the only way I knew how to do that would be to be an ambassador. So I had this whole dream from childhood to be an ambassador to Latin America. I went to Georgetown. I studied to be an ambassador, foreign service. I passed my foreign service exam. So I was ready to go. And literally the day I graduated, my dean pulled me to the side and said, the reality is that it's going to take a very long time for you to be an ambassador if you go into the foreign service, because career officials, tend not to be foreign service or tend not to be ambassadors. Only 2% of career officers make it. Mm-hmm. If you really want to be an ambassador, you got to go make a name for yourself, earn a lot of money, contribute to someone's campaign later on down the road, and then maybe they'll appoint you ambassador somewhere. So I kind of took that advice to heart, and instead of going into the foreign service, I went the corporate route and started my first job in Procter & Gamble in Latin America. I didn't know anything about marketing. Mm-hmm. I just knew that, I wanted to make a difference, and they recognized something in me, and that was my first job.
But then from there to the NFL, we can track honestly, an incredible rate of promotions and change and all your hard work. But also, I think that it is related to seeing the big picture and how do you actually get to there faster. And again, like understanding that there's for 100 male promotions, only 71 Latinas get equally promoted. So we're really down behind. And so how do we fast track those promotions? How have you made it?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't about getting promoted. So it wasn't about, I want to be the director, or I want to be the president or the vice president. It wasn't about climbing the ladder. For me, it was always about the purpose. Like, I just wanted to have an impact and be a representative of my community. So anytime I saw an opportunity to have bigger visibility, to make a bigger impact, I took it. And it didn't matter if it was going to be director of brand this or, this other thing. And I think that was very freeing for me because I see a lot of Latinas, have this vision of like a very structured career path. Okay, I'm going to go in, work really hard, go from manager to senior manager to then director, senior director, maybe vice president, the ladder. And that can be very limiting. I just didn't ever think of it that way. I said, I'm going to go where the opportunity goes and where I have the opportunity to make that impact and to be visible and to help solve issues for people.
And you have spoken about how sponsors and mentors took a bet on you, wanted you to succeed. So can you tell us how that happened?
Mentors played a big role, especially early in the career, because they're more like coaches, they really tell you sometimes the things you don't want to hear. Hey, you need to be better at, you need to know your data better. You need to make sure that you don't talk for 5 minutes. You've got to have your 30-second speech. They're really good at kind of training you to be ready in the moment. I think for me, the breakthrough was the sponsorship piece. And you don't really know. I didn't know that I was building sponsors. What I did know is that I identified the people in my organizations that were the most influential. And many times it was the CEO, the head of sales, the head of marketing, the most influential. And I said, I'm going to find out that person's agenda, and I am going to make it my mission to solve that person's problem. And that was, that was it. And very early on, in my career at PepsiCo, I can name countless sponsors that fast-tracked my career. Tom Greco was the head of sales at Frito-Lay. I got to know him because I had an interest in sales as a marketer, worked with him a couple of times, and he became CEO of Frito-Lay. And he needed somebody to go do like a new venture to launch a frozen product, a frozen snack. Nobody wanted to do it because it was a big risk. It didn't really promise the promotion. It was just like a side project of his on the side. And I said, you know what? It's important to him. It's important to the company. I'm going to go do it. And that was one of the best things I ever did because it exposed me to him, to his leadership. It was an opportunity that nobody else saw that then later grew the business. It got me in front of Walmart, which, as you know, can be very important in that line of business. Like Walmart is everything. If Walmart likes your product as a consumer product company, you're in. So that was a very early way that I got myself front and center and the most influential person in the company. And then he became vested in me and my career. And I didn't know it at the time, but he was, talking about me. He was promoting me at higher up levels in PepsiCo, to Endra Nui, to, the people that later on in my career also helped me fast track. So it was important to start by knowing, what is it about this person that I can help resolve? How can I be of help to this person, be the problem solver, help grow the organization? It wasn't about me. It was about them.
But let's pause here. you just dropped so many pieces of jewels. I'm picking them up okay, there's one diamond and there's another one. All right, let's one. I can totally see you as an ambassador, Solis. I love that. I love ambassador Solis.
Me too. So
Mexico,
keep the good vibes.
No, you started listing a couple of things that people told you all across, or that you were able to pick up, like, don't talk for too long, don't do this. I would love to see a little bit more like fleshing out that list so that our audience can get those tips that all of us would love to know early on and not later on, right? Like the sooner the better. And then the other one, I just want to understand. So wait, what you're saying is the way to progress and bring value is by finding what problem can you solve. This is not about you, and your promotion depends on how much you're solving someone. Can you like break those two pieces down a little bit more?
Yeah, I mean, I think many times there's this myth that if you want to get ahead and you want to get promoted, go ask for the promotion. People say, go ask for the promotion.
Yes.
But you can't walk into a senior leader's office and say, I want to be promoted to X because I bring all this stuff to the table, boom, 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 because they're just going to look at you like, okay, you're one of many people that have come into my office asking that. What you need to do is do a little bit of research and understand whoever you're going to ask, whether it's that company's CEO or the head of marketing or whoever, what is that person's biggest agenda item? Like, what is that person's biggest challenge? And you go in there and be very well prepared, because it's like a minute. You have like a minute to make your case. And you make your case and you say, I know you have this issue. I know that, this is going to be the way to grow the company or grow our marketing. Here's what I'm going to bring to the table. And I propose that, you help me help you. You don't even ask for the promotion. I'll give you an example. Stephen Williams, he's wonderful leader, again, Frito-Lay CEO. I really wanted to work for him. He is one of the best, and I wanted to come back and lead marketing for Frito. And I had a meeting with him, and I literally had 5 minutes. And all I said to him was, I didn't say I wanted to lead marketing. I didn't tell him. He already knew all the things I had done for the company. So there's a point when your record speaks for itself. What I said to him was, the company is at such a point where there's so many ways to grow because we're the biggest snack company, the biggest beverage company. There's so many audiences, there's so many things to reach and so many opportunities. And all I said was, I want to be your chief opportunity officer. I want to unlock those opportunities and, double our growth and make our company, continue to make our company great. And he remembered that. He's like, Chief Opportunity Officer. I love that. I didn't become Chief Opportunity Officer. I actually got the SVP role for brands. But he remembered that because it was about the company, about his agenda and what he needed to do. And that's very, very important, is you need to understand the role you play within the organization and how you can help that add value to that organization.
I also loved, you didn't say it with these words, but I've heard it said with these words, which is, think about who is speaking on your behalf or about you in the conversations that matter. Like whenever they're talking about a project and they're thinking who's going to be leading it from a marketing perspective, who is in that room that is going to say, Marissa should lead that. And I think it's hard to know like who is making those decisions. How did you identify the one person that could speak about you, unless everybody was speaking about you? But it seems like you were very strategic about there's this person that will be in the room.
Early on in your career, you don't know. I honestly didn't know. I didn't even know about the big rooms and how it all works. Sometimes mentors,
they can help you
and teach you that. But I think you do know. You know who your boss is. You know who his peer or his or her peers are. And as you go through an organization, you start to learn how it works.
Yeah.
And it's just important to observe who are the people making the decisions, who are the people moving and pushing the organization, because those are the people that are probably going to be in those rooms, and those are the people that are going to be pushing you. And again, you present yourself to those people, and you make yourself valuable by either adding to their business, ensuring that you understand their agenda and you can advance their agenda.
Got it.
And I think that's a very authentic way to do it a la Latina, because we're not, we're humble. We work hard, and we just don't want to go and show off like, hey, look at me. Like, we don't do that. And so if we understand that part of our playbook could be by doing the things that we do the best, which is serve each other, care for each other, by looking at this in a strategic way, which is, I'm going to be a problem solver for you as a way to fast track my career. Then we're doing something that is authentically Latino.
You know what?
Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely.
There's this idea that you can get to the top on your own, right? Like stepping on other people, that's how you get to become the CEO of a company. And it really doesn't seem to sit well with Latinas, because Latinas, in general, like, we're part of a community. We want to bring other people with us. And I love when I hear you saying that it's not about me. It's about helping others. But at the same time you're helping others, you're elevating your own visibility. So it's the secondary effect of...
Yeah, and bringing others with you is absolutely critical. Because later, when you have the opportunity to have your own vision and create kind of what you want to do in your own agenda, if other people aren't inspired by it and support you, you don't get anywhere. So you learn that early on, and then you build that as you get the courage to build your own vision.
I think that for me, you are, and again, that's why I wanted to talk about fast tracking, because if I look at you from the vision and the dream to become ambassador, Solis, going into consultancy, then getting into, like CPG, Procter, then you moved on to consultancy, then you started, like with PepsiCo, Frito-Lay, and now the NFL. I think that, like, we would like to know, how did you get to the NFL? Probably, as Cynthia was asking, like, you got many phone calls, but then you chose this one to pick it up and come. Why was the decision of the NFL? How was it in your own also, like, personal growth line?
I could probably write a whole book about that chapter and that decision. It was not an easy decision. I mean, people say, you work for the NFL, that must have been, a no-brainer. The NFL calls you, of course you say yes. It was a very hard decision. I wasn't expecting the call at all. I was in a very, very good place at PepsiCo. I mean, you hear me talk about the company. I bleed blue. I say I love that company. All the leaders there are incredible. So I had a vision already of what my career was going to be. I already had my PepsiCo career in my mind. So this phone call came completely out of the blue. And I remember it distinctly because, the headhunter said, hey, I have this job leading brand for an iconic whatever organization. I said, hey, you know what? I already work for an iconic organization. I probably don't need to hear it. So there's probably 5 brands that I would actually entertain. And he said, well, you probably should hear this one. It's the NFL. I said, as in the National Football League.
I got goosebumps.
And I was like, yes, I'm listening.
Yeah.
And even then, I was just listening to hear it out. And I remember telling my husband, I got this call. I should probably entertain the interviews because I just want to know what it's like. I want to learn the process and see what they're looking for. And gosh, I doubt that I'll make it through, but I just want to learn. Sure enough, the process happened. And then when the offer actually came, I mean, it was a shock. It's a completely different, it's like, honestly, like jumping off a cliff. It's like you've gotten to that height in your career and then there's this cliff. And somebody tells you, if you jump off, you may fall flat and die on your face, or you may jump off and fly. And I was like, okay, let's take the risk and see what happens. I didn't want to, like, a couple of years later, look back and say, there was this great opportunity and I didn't take it. And of course, the NFL, it's the biggest platform in sports, arguably in America, will soon be hopefully in the world. And just the opportunity to storytell, to elevate communities. Everything that my purpose is, I kind of saw the alignment. It was about the opportunity to be visible and make a bigger impact and be able to elevate my community. Like, it was just so great. It aligned. And I said, let's do it.
Let's take the big bet.
Let's take the big bet.
Actually,
yes.
let's go to that. That's a second topic theme that I think I associate with you. And you said in Cannes, well, we were there in Cannes Lion this year, you said, like, you gave that advice to companies. Take the big bet. You talk to leaders, take the big bet. You've been taking the big bet. You've been making companies take the big bet. You took your first big bet when, when that dean told you, don't go into diplomacy. In PepsiCo, I would love for you to talk a little bit more about, like, not only how you took it when you decided to agree to take the Latino portfolio as opposed to keep on, like general market, but then how you transformed, like how you made PepsiCo take the big bet as a company in the portfolio that you were building. And then, like we'll talk about the NFL and the biggest bet of all that you made in bringing the Latinos to the Super Bowl. So PepsiCo.
It seems easy to say, oh, just take the big bet and go. It's not that easy, right? And it requires mentors and sponsors and people around you to give you the right advice. The Hispanic business unit at PepsiCo, when that first came up, I was asked to do it. I turned it down. I didn't want to do it.
So there was no Latino portfolio at PepsiCo?
No, there was not. No, there was. I mean, there was a multicultural marketing group. We were doing some levels of marketing and communication to Latinos and other multicultural communities. I think that at the time, Indra in particular had a vision that she really wanted to create, this something deeper to serve the Latino community. And again, when they came to ask me, I turned it down.
Look, I don't want to derail the conversation, but I think we can not teach, but like explain something as marketers to Claudia that I hope the audience will also understand. When you're in marketing and somebody tells you you're going to do multicultural marketing, you're like, what did I do wrong? They're just going to put me aside and they're not going to let me actually drive the strategy. I'm going to be translating ads to Spanish or try to make the story of an ad fit for the Latino audience. So I also got asked to do multicultural marketing, and I always said no. And I love to see that you ended up saying yes, and I hope that that's something that we can flip the script. And when somebody gets asked, you want to do marketing for multicultural audiences, it's not they want to put you aside, but it's actually, it feels like a promotion.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because yes, but for me, it wasn't so much that about the job, it was about my identity. Because I didn't want to be pegged. I always said, I am a business leader, period, end of story. That's it. I don't want to be a Latina or a this or that. And so I said, absolutely not. So I turned it down. But one of my biggest mentors, sponsors, whatever, my idol, maybe you call it, and that is Al Carey. I think you know Al Carey. He came to me and said, you don't understand what this could mean for our company, but also for you. He's like, there's no one else that can do this job. This is a very important job, but only you can do this job because you understand. You know the community. You understand the insight. And only you can bring it to life and, really make this work. And his words really kind of made that whole change in me of, okay, maybe being Latina is actually like a good thing for business. It's not, don't try to hide it. Like, use that power for the benefit of the company. And he really was the one that convinced me. And I mean, it's such a, probably one of the proudest things I've done in my career, if not the proudest, because we started from scratch. It was like, Marissa, go build a business unit. And we had to build it from the ground up. We had to get the marketers, the researchers, the financiers, the sales force. That was probably the most important piece, is that we discovered there's little stores everywhere in America, right? I mean, New York is filled with them, little colmados or little places that could sell our products. But when our sales organization was going in speaking in English and being very transactional. They weren't building those relationships, and we weren't building the business. And the minute you had a Latino sales force with Latinos speaking Spanish, being Latinos to Latinos, those relationships with all those small business started to form, and the business just started to take off.
That's crazy.
It's an amazing story, and I'm so proud that it's still there. You know, it's a legacy. If you know, you may have Esperanza Tisdale in your podcast later. She leads the beverage piece of the business. Antonio Escalona leads the foods part of the business. So now there's like a huge organization dedicated in PepsiCo, dedicated to Latinos and the Latino business.
So I remember one of the first figures that I heard from PepsiCo was declaring pretty openly that like 65, I think, % of their growth in the next couple of years, depending on the Latino community. So pretty much that was you know, like that started the baseline.
We built a business case,
You
to
built a business.
convince the organization that they needed to invest behind the Hispanic community.
And again, you did that by not thinking of you and your success, but looking at how can I solve that growth and that opportunity problem. And Al is a person of the film Flaming Hot, right? The one that is
Al helped Richard Montañez early in his career too, when Richard, you know, was doing all the product experimenting in Cucamonga, in Rancho Cucamonga. So yeah, Al is a champion of the Latino community, one of the world's, I mean, he's the best human being, but also, you know, very, very successful and savvy business leader who recognized the opportunity.
But from that moment to the investment that PepsiCo did, to the massive investment of PepsiCo, to the campaign of John Leguizamo, say, like, we're, you know, like, look how far we've come from. How did you make PepsiCo take the big bet? First, not only on you, but on the market. Like, that was a big bet. How did you make, what did it take?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing was you had to build the business case, and you had to show why the Latino community was relevant and important to the business. And it wasn't just the numbers around the Latino community, right? It wasn't just that we're now 65 million strong, $1 trillion in, you know, economic power. It wasn't those things. It was very specifically what that community represented to future consumption of liquid refreshment beverages and, you know, salty snacks, and now savory snacks. Because that community represents, you know, a big portion, you know, of consumption for the business. So it was, from a consumer point of view, that opportunity, the B2B opportunity, like how we grew our business with all of these small, you know, countless little community, you know, stores all over the U.S. That was another big point to convince them. So it was building the case. Then after you build the case and people believed in it, then it was building the team. You had to build the right team. So again, back to you can't accomplish things on your own. Like, you're not an island. I had to make sure that I had the right Latinos, the right leaders, the right passionate people to come in and help create products and help sell and help market and help research to truly build, you know, that business for the future. And it was great because a lot of these team members were young and up and coming and rising stars in the company. And at first, you know, they didn't see, it was kind of like me, like, oh, now I'm being pegged to be in this Hispanic thing. But then as it started to take off, I think it was a source of pride for, you know, for a lot of us that, gosh, we could really make a difference in our community and make a difference for our company and add value and growth to our company at the same time.
Are you applying a similar framework in the NFL?
Yes, very similar framework. Now, granted, very different businesses, right? Mm-hmm. We're not selling products, but if you think about, you know, the business of the NFL, which is the game, mm-hmm. and all that the game represents, our fan base is so incredibly important. And when you took a look, you know, especially back when, I joined, and even a few years before, you took a look at the fan base. And the fan base of the NFL is very homogenous, right? Tends to be older, center America, tends to be, more white male. And when you see the demographic changes in our country, the future is young, the future is multicultural, the future is women, the future is intersectional, right? So it isn't even about just Latino or African American. It's about, all these intersections of ethnicity and culture. And so it was really, really important for us, if we're going to be relevant, 5-10 years from now, that we made sure that we reached out to that audience and that we grew that fan base. So that was an easier business case, believe it or not, to make, right?
Well, it was much later.
And it was
right?
much later,
the world
yes.
is in a different place. And,
It was much later.
Yeah.
But I do want to make sure that you tell the story of that Emmy Award campaign that made every Latino cry during the Super Bowl by seeing us for the first time in a 2-minute video, seeing Diana running as a flagship, like as a flag football champion, seeing the Latinos exposed there, and how, but also I want you to tell the story of that, but how did you make it? So many of us, so many of the people that are listening to this podcast and Incorporate America try to make their case relevant, try to make sure that their companies understand their numbers, and yet they only meet deaf ears, or they just get closed doors. So tell the story of how did you make that incredible Super Bowl ad a reality, the way that you did with the NFL and getting all those ads, but also how, what did it take personally from you? What was the wisdom? What's a playbook that maybe others can learn from?
In a way, it's funny, because in a way we just did. We just did it. I mean, we didn't overthink it. It was like, we have to tell this story, and we did. But I will give you the context and the backdrop. It was almost a perfect storm. One, we knew we had to expand our fan base, and we needed to reach much broader, young people, Gen Z, women was very important, the Latino community. So those kind of were the 3 biggest things that we knew we needed to reach. At the same time, the sport of flag football is becoming so increasingly important to the league, because flag football is the entryway into football. And it really is the way that everyone can play the sport, because it's a sport that no matter what gender, ethnicity, age, even ability level, you can play. And so the rise of that sport.
I can't play it though.
You
say
can
like
play.
anybody.
No, you can play.
I've tried.
The rise of that sport was happening at the same time as this other story of we needed to reach, younger and a more diverse audience. And then the other perfect storm was that Diana Flores happened to win the world championship. She was the captain of the Mexican national team, captain and quarterback. And she was featured in a game in Los Angeles. I think they went out on the field and they recognized her. The league made her captain of the Pro Bowl with Peyton Manning, her idol. So she was already somebody that we were placing a bet on. And, because she was such a she is such a great star. So all the stars kind of aligned. All that formula needed was just the belief and the push that we should do this. And I have to give a lot of credit to, Tim Ellis, my boss, who said, let's do this, let's go for it. I had the support in the boardroom. I had Tim, Roger, that support was absolutely critical. And, when you meet Diana, I mean, she's the most wonderful human being. How could you not tell her story? Her story is so powerful. And it just lent itself to that beautiful story arc that you need for a successful Super Bowl spot, right? It was drama. It was purpose. It was endearing because you saw her story. And it was representing a community that had never been heard at that stage, right? So putting her story front and center, the first ever, I think, don't quote me on this, but the first ever Spanish language commercial in the Super Bowl, that was great. And, you had to do it that way, because we could have very easily gotten an actress to play her and still told the story of women in flag football and made that scene with her mom in English, but that wouldn't have been her. It wouldn't have been a real story. And the power of impact is always telling the authentic story, is always telling the real thing and putting it front and center for people to see.
Well, how did you make, sorry, I'd just like to finish on this one, because you said in Cannes that it took a village, and you built trust in a way that...
It took a village.
It took a village, and the agencies...
No, it took a village.
Everybody pitched in.
I mean, this was truly a story of, you had to have the support from the top. So from Roger Goodell all the way down to senior leadership. But then your advertising and creative agency had to be vested in her story. They couldn't go off and tell some other crazy creative. It was her story. So she trusted us and the agency, and we trusted the agency with her story. Then we had to get the right director, the right production company to bring this story to life. And then the right partners, right? Obviously the players that are in it. But I want to tell the story of Billie Jean, because this was very important. So Billie Jean King was in the commercial. She's she is the trailblazer in women's sports. And we thought it would be so special for her to appear in it, right? And give a nod to this wonderful woman trailblazer. And when we called her, she was absolutely thrilled. She wanted to do this for Diana, but she couldn't do it because we shot the same week as the Australian Open. And so she said, I'm not going to be able to do it. I have this conflict. Well, lo and behold, a few days later, she called back to say she believed in it so strongly. Wow. She flew, I think, from New York to LA, shot the commercial with us, and then flew to Australia. And that was just a testament of, her belief in, this woman, Diana, and the bigger story of the power of sports, right? Women trailblazer in sports, representation in sports, and just the impact that you have when you tell stories of communities that are not seen or heard. So very, very impactful. And yes, a big bet, but a bet that, all of those people, the village was willing to make, right? You can't make the bet sometimes on your own. You have to have the people around you, believing in it as well to push it through.
I think you're trying not to take too much credit for selling this idea.
Yeah.
And I think that this idea of the innovator's dilemma, like you prove that you can make a bet and you can like look at the future and grow, but there's risk associated. Like I'm sure that you had uncomfortable conversations, that not everybody was sold on it, and I think you should take a little bit more credit for showing that the changes and the multicultural investments that we're seeing now are better than before, but they're not yet where they should be, and that there's actually a business reason to make these investments and to not fall in this innovator's dilemma, because the NFL could just continue marketing to white male and they would see benefits today. But you are the one saying, okay, do you want me to be the chief brand officer today that the NFL dies after me, or do you want me to give it life in the future? And I think it speaks really highly on your storytelling abilities.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, we did make a choice. There was a choice to be made. Of all the messages we could have said and of all the things we could have emphasized, we took the bet that it had to be her story. And it was the right bet. It certainly paid off, but it's linked to, like I said from the very beginning, it's linked to the overall vision and mission that the league is trying to do. Mm-hmm. So this wasn't about me like, I want to put a Latina. No, this was about the vision of the league being more approachable, more human, more, embracing of inclusivity and diversity, and elevating, a sport that belongs to everyone. So it fit perfectly. Yeah. Like it wasn't, just out of the blue type of thing.
So before we move on, I would love to My son made me read recently How to Influence People and Gain Friends, because he's in that period of his life where he wants to influence people and make friends. And it's like a super old book, but a lot of what you said could be applied. You know, like it's not about you, it's about like how do you actually bring the others along. Is there more about what you did? Like, let alone, we had the Super Bowl 2 minutes. We had Diana. You had, you know, like the entire country crying, and you won an Emmy, and you probably won like millions of fans and all of that. What was your way of getting it done? Did you make people believe that it was their idea? It was not about the Latinos, it was not about your ideas, but it was about like how much, you know, like it was a business case, but it was about not getting credit, or it was, you know, like tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, it was ultimately about, you know, I talked at the very beginning about really understanding people's agendas and making sure that you are positioning things to solve their issue or to advance their agenda. And at the end of the day, the agenda of the league is to be more inclusive, is to grow our fan base, is to be relevant. And so it was easy to convince, and, you know, maybe to your point, I say easy, but when you have a story that links back to the full vision of what the league wants to do, it's a lot easier, right, than when you make it about yourself. So it was never about, okay, we're going to win an Emmy, or let's make this to get the #1 spot on the ad meter. It was always about, let's tell a powerful story. Let's shine the light on, you know, on this person that needs to be seen.
So let's talk about being a Latina. And being Latina. So 76% of Hispanics, Latinos, Latinx, whatever you want to call us, feel that they cannot be themselves at the workplace. So we come to, you know, work with someone we don't even know, and we leave ourselves at home, and we bring that person that we think might have a chance of succeeding. So we want to talk about that effort.
Yeah. Can you tell us, like, think about your time probably at Pepsi and earlier in your career. Do you feel like you had to hide some of your values as Latina? And then inversely, were there elements of your culture and your upbringing that you dialed up because you thought they would help you in your career?
Yeah, I never hid anything because I just couldn't. I had to be myself. Now, I dialed up certain things for sure, but I didn't change. And even when I was told over and over, and I'll tell you the one piece of feedback that I always got, and to this day, maybe I'll write a book on this one, but I was always told I was too nice. I'm way too nice. You know, in business, you have to be ruthless, and in business, you have to, you know, focus and be assertive, and you can't be nice to people. And I just couldn't, I don't know, that's just a part of me I couldn't change, right? And so I refused to listen, which that might not be a good thing, but I refused to listen. I said, no, I think that you can. There may be a time when, you know, it's time to not be so nice, but give people the benefit of the doubt and be nice. So over time, I ignored that feedback. And I think I'm still nice, and it still worked out. So that one worked out. I didn't have to sacrifice me, right? Me authentically, because I just, who I am is very important to me. So I never did. I think a couple of things. I did have to build some other things. You know, my business presence, my knowledge. I had to be trained on the vernacular of the organization. So when I was, you know, a young Latina growing up in the company, I was very casual because I am a casual person. And so I would go in and, you know, sometimes with senior leaders and, hey guys, I have a great idea. And particularly when you're trained in the sales organization and you're going up to the Walmarts of the world, you cannot be that way. And so, yes, I had to learn to be very formal, to use the company's, you know, vernacular and language, and learn the business cold. Like I had to know my numbers, you know, like they were second nature to me, and I'm not necessarily a numbers person, and so I did have to work very hard to become a numbers person. So those things I had to build. And then I did hide my Latina wasn't a part of my early career. Because again, I wanted to prove myself as a business leader. So who I am as a person, Marissa, I never sacrificed. I was nice, you know, I had fun. I talked about my daughter. Like, I'm a very open person, and that didn't change. But I never really explored or maximized the power of being Latina, because I just didn't know. I didn't know that it was a power. I didn't know that it could change and make an impact. I didn't know until very late, until Al Carey said, you need to do this. You don't understand. And that's when it just like, wow, it was the big, you know, aha moment. It was my aha moment. It's like, ponte las pilas, like you are Latina and it means something.
And you should be driving with it.
Yeah. And that was late. That was not early in my career. That was much later. So
I want to talk to you about flipping the script. And I think that for me, I want to talk about this with, you know, with a personal story. So my youth, I was in Mexico City, and when I was a teenager, there was this massive series of earthquakes in Mexico City in 1985, and me, like everybody that I know, went out in the street and started, you know, like finding their family and friends and started volunteering. And there was this self-organization happening in that moment, self-leadership, like shelter here, food there. And I was in this particular group that was like sweeping the streets and trying to find whether people were trapped in the buildings. And I remember very distinctively how confusing it was and how loud, like how much, you know, like noise there was. But there was something that stopped me. And I started screaming out my lungs, like, stop, stop. And so one of the guys in my group that was only men, and they were all very big. And so he turned around and he was like, what? And I was like, I think I heard someone. And he was like, think or heard. And I just looked at him and started shouting even louder, like, stop, 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 come back. So he was very angry. He came back. By the time he came, we could clearly hear there was a voice. So both of us looked at each other and started shouting, like, stop, stop, come back, come back. And so 4 people came. We started shouting, stop, come back, until we were enough, 20 people, to start pushing that wall. And it was like for hours, at least it felt that way. Wow. Until we were able to break through, see the light, and poof, there were the eyes of this girl.
Wow, that's very powerful.
Eyes, like eyelashes full of dust, and she was looking at us as in, you got me, right? And that was the first time in my life in which I felt useful. But it was also the first time in my life that I was like, wait, my father criticized me all the time, like, I'm so loud, it's great to be loud. You know, it was like, for me, it was a flip the script that happened just there by seeing the mother hug that girl, where she didn't even look at me, but I knew that I had a role to play because I was loud, and that was a great thing. And honestly, I've been doing that my entire life, right? Like 25 years of just like trying to get the attention of people to doing something. But I think that there's something about like flipping the script, about saying like loud is great because I was able to bring the attention of people to something they didn't see. And sometimes corporations see our values as something negative. And I think that it is great when you can flip the script, and when you have a script that helps you. Talk to us about your script. How we've been, you know, like living with that, and how do you think there's some things that you have seen in corporate America where you're like, guys, let's flip this script. Let's talk about like feminism as team building, or about, you know, like loudness as enthusiasm or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's as direct as that. That story is very, very impactful. I do think, you know, I talked to you about this whole you're too nice, and I had a lot of feedback that I was too nice to my team. I wasn't tough enough on my team to make them, you know, tough. And I think when I look back now, if I could flip the script, it was really about empathy. And when you're empathetic and understand those around you, their needs, you know, you build a bond and a relationship with your team. Like, they are going to be willing to walk through walls for you. And it doesn't take a, you've got to do this, or it doesn't take a strong arm. Like sometimes the empathy, being vulnerable, being able to share actually creates a more powerful team, right? And more powerful loyalty and bond. So that would be a big one, I think, in terms of flipping the script, if you will. I think a big one that all of us Latinas need to take hold of is, we all grew up with some sort of challenge, right? Whether it was finding our voices, whether it was trying to, fit in, navigating the chaos sometimes of life, right? And maybe sometimes not knowing what our path is and living in that ambiguity. You can turn that into a strength, because today, being able to navigate in ambiguity, it is a humongous strength. The world is crazy. It is ambiguous. Things change literally every minute. And you've got to just be able to be comfortable in ambiguity, be adaptable. And those things are powerful things. They're not just powerful, to teams, they're powerful in the boardroom. And so I think from a Latina standpoint, navigating an ambiguity, being able to manage the chaos is a strength. And then doing it with empathy and kindness and caring, that's key. That is key in a world of craziness, right? So I would say that's a pretty big flip of the script for us.
I think that Latinas then are the perfect employees and the perfect leaders of the future, because I don't know, 50 years ago, people would actually have a career, the entire career in the same company, and your manager, the CEO, could be pretty aggressive and not empathetic at all, but where would you go? And now, where do you go? Like, people are leaving jobs because they don't like their managers, because they're mistreated, and the tenure of people in companies is shorter, but they stick around for leaders like you that show empathy. And I don't know if you were experiencing this, but in the past, I'd say maybe 5 years, I've shifted how I even write job descriptions for people that come work with me, because the jobs are so fluid. Like, you come and I write a job description, and then no job description had generative AI 3 months ago, and now it's all about generative AI. So if you create a very rigid job description, you bring the wrong person for the job. So being able to be flexible, it's, I think, super important. So everybody should be employing more Latinas and Latinos.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
And so, talking about you, Marissa, and your brand, you were talking about like you being, like maybe too nice and so on. We have deep respect and admiration for you, for your career, for your personally, and that's why we wanted you to share your knowledge and literally just like make sure that our Latinas have the playbook early on in their careers. So how do you do your choices when it comes to building also that, like your brand?
Your personal brand. Like, we see that you are out there, you're speaking, but you're also thoughtful about what you speak about, because as a marketer, you're creating your own brand. I think if we ask 10 people that have heard you speaking or that have encountered you professionally, there are certain things that we would all say about you. So how should our audience think about building their own brands for the future of their careers?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a marketer, the model is very similar, right? As to how you would build a brand. First, you really need to think through, who is that audience you want to impact? Because you can't please everybody, right? Who really matters to you as a person that you want to impact, that you want to inspire? That's really important. And then what is that point of distinction? What sets you apart? What are the things that you want to be known for? And ultimately, how that point of distinction points to your purpose. I mean, that purpose is a huge thing. What is your purpose? What do you live for? And I think you can see certain people, what their purpose is. Some people are innovators. Some people are disruptors.
What about you?
I think that I am a bridge builder. Like, I like to connect dots and connect people. But ultimately, I think I give a voice. I feel like I have that purpose to give a voice to those that, can't find it themselves or unseen or unheard. And I'm just very privileged to have, to be in a position where I can do that, because I have a platform, I have people that believe in me, all of those things at my disposal that I can leverage to make that impact. And not just for me and for the communities, but clearly for the organization I serve, right? In this case, for the league, like, how do we make the league more relevant? But at the same time, how do we elevate all these communities and, make that impact?
Great. We have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
What would you give yourself as advice if you were talking to 30-year-old Marissa professionally? And you have to, like, one tip.
Yeah, I would probably tell my younger self, take more risks. Like, life is way too short. I think I was very calculated, and I did plan a lot, and I'd overthought things a lot. And I think sometimes you just have to jump off the cliff. I mean, I did it very late, in my career, and it's been amazing. You learn all these new things about yourself. If I had been doing the same kind of cliff jumping back when I was 30, I mean, gosh, who knows? Maybe I'd be an ambassador now.
Yes.
But, everybody finds their time. But I really wish I would have taken more risks earlier in life.
And who else do you think we should have in this podcast? If we have, if we have the opportunity to pretty much create a playbook for young Latinas so that they can fast track and take the big bets. Who else should we have?
Oh my gosh, there's so many incredible Latina leaders. I mean, I think a lot of them. I'd love to see Espy, just because she's kind of, first of all, I mentored her and I see her grow, and I'm so incredibly proud of her. So, and she's now leading the Hispanic business unit at PepsiCo. So I'd love to see Esperanza. I think Nina Vaca. Mm-hmm. What an incredible icon. She's one of my inspirations. She's built a business from scratch. She has a lovely family. I mean, she's the whole package and the real thing. So,
and the triathlon thing.
Yeah. and the triathlon thing. So I'd love to see her. Please have Diana. You will love Diana. I mean,
yes, let's have her.
Diana is incredible, and she's so humble, and she's kind of early, right, in her stage of finding herself and really blooming. And so I think she would be amazing. Okay. So you have all these, incredible leaders, maybe some actresses, get some actresses, some directors in here.
Yeah. So I think that the last question is, any final message for our audience, looking at you and saying, like, okay, how do I do this best?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's a journey. Like, there's not a formula that you have to follow and all of a sudden you're successful. It's a journey. You learn along the way. You step back. You have failures and drawbacks that you learn from, and then you keep going. I think for me, the thing that's kept me going is, that inner fuel. It's my purpose. It's my parents, right? I live to honor their legacy, and it's my community, right? I want to build my community. That fuels me. So find whatever it is that fuels you, because the days are long, the days are hard. It's not all roses out there. So you have to find the thing within you that just powers you forward, and makes you give that impact.
Okay, great.
Thank
you, Marissa. This was great.
Yes.
Incredible. Thank you so very much. Marissa Solis, Senior Vice President of Global Brand and Consumer Marketing of the NFL. It was a pleasure having you here.
It was a pleasure being here.
For ambassadors, we don't vote, right? So I would vote for you.
No, but you can influence.
Okay, tell me what to do.
Gracias. Ciao. Thank you. I mean, we have a Mexicana distinguida. Maybe she can help us figure it out.
Where is it?
Una rayita más al tigre.
Una rayita más al tigre. Okay.
I love it.